And today we have Avezo. Right now she's a third-year shlicha in Temple University in Philadelphia. And she's going to tell us the story, her story, and the story about the Ethiopian community. So no further ado, Avezo, the stage is all yours.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. So my name is Avezo. Adi already mentioned my name. So sorry, guys, it was a very stressful day. I was with the dean of the student, and we speak about anti-Semitic and the relationship with anti-Israeli. So, and it was until now. But I will speak about myself, and I start with share my screen. You see, עדי, אתם רואים?
אנחנו רואים את כל קאמרה.
You see everything? Yeah?
Yeah.
So let's open it as a question. Everybody, you are old enough. All the time when I ask my student, who are you? They don't know what to answer me. So, and they're like, we don't know, we just didn't figure out. And I can say from young age, I really understand who I am. So for me, it was very strange that in USA, when you come approach to the 18 student, he don't know who is, like, he don't figure out how to identify himself. So let's see if, like, feel brave enough to share with me what, if I ask you, who are you? What you will say? Volunteers. Adi, we can start with you. Who are you?
I am Israeli, I'm Jewish, I'm a woman, I am a friend, I am a daughter, I am a Mizrahit. I think I covered pretty much. Yeah.
Okay, somebody else?
I'm Jewish, I'm an American, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a Saba, I'm a friend.
Or people?
I am Jewish. I'm a wife and mother and Bobby. I am working as a pediatrician. A woman, I'm a good friend, and I am a sister.
Someone else? So I will continue. Anyway, usually when people ask me who I am, so if you see majority of the things that I write in the presentation, it's something that I never decide. Like, I born Jewish, I born to Ethiopian parents, and I also born in Ethiopia. And I'm Israeli because all my life I grew up in Israel, and I see myself, it's a big part of my identity. And also woman, it's something, today it's very controversial to say that. You cannot say that very, like in the university, I'm a woman, and say like, this is, I didn't choose it, but I'm a woman. So this is the big part of my identities. And we speak today more about my life, but also I will speak about how these identities take a part in USA, and how different quickly it ship and minimize all these identities to one box that call you are Black, and this is it. So we'll speak about this. So first, coming to USA, of course, you have the Social Security card. And this is the time I understand something weird happened in this country. Why I need to check the box of race. Because for me, you tell me, oh, Avezo, you are such naive. For me, there is a human race. And then you have like the skin color or your ethnicity or your nationality. But race, like, and also to see all these things on race, like Native Hawaiian, Alaskan, I didn't understand what is mean. Like, I was like, what is mean? Because you see colors and you see ethnicity in the box of race. So, and I write, what? It was like this. And of course, the person that was with me in the Social Security office, the first thing that they told me, they're like, you need to check to check the box of Black. And I was like, excuse me, who are you to decide why you call me a Black? And it's not in an offensive way, okay? I just was like, you minimize all my identities to a Black? This is what you see? Like, this is the only thing that you know, like, you think about me? And she was like, this is America, welcome to USA. And I was like, okay, I'm not gonna check the box. Of course, she did it for me. When I told her, okay, I don't see, do it. And she checked the Social Security card for me. But this was the point that I really understand there is a big difference between what I see as identities and how my student and the environment in USA, especially in Philadelphia, see a lot different for me what is identities. So let's start. So I come from beautiful community that called Beta Israel, very ancient community, located in Gondar, in Ethiopia. You can see the region of Ethiopia. I come from Gondar, of course. Most of the Ethiopians come from the north of the Ethiopia. And most of us was living in tiny communities, really side by side, like every Jewish people in the diaspora. Jewish people love to isolate themselves from everybody. So I born in Gondar, and my family, when I was 2 months, decided to move to Israel. So we call it Operation Shlomo, okay? How many of you know about Operation Solomon? Yeah, Margot, explain.
That's why, that's when the government of Israel went and rescued all the Ethiopians and brought them to Israel?
Yeah. So we have two operations. If you you know the difference between Operation Moses and Operation Solomon?
I forgot. I mean, I seen both of them, but I forgot like what.
Okay. Somebody know the difference between these big two operations? So we start with Moses, okay? So Operation Moses take part in 1984. Fun fact, my uncle, he was 17 years old, and he decided that he going to Israel because he know that Israel became, he know that Israel opened their gate for the Jewish people, and he decided to go to Israel. My mother was in the same year. She was with the first child, my brother, my old brother. And this is why my father decided not to take this journey, because Operation Moses, one of the things that well know, it's they walk from Ethiopia to Sudan. And it's a 3-month walk in the desert. It was really like, how I can say, Yetziat Israel, Bamidbar. You understand what I'm saying? Adi?
When the Israelis walked in the desert?
Yeah, when the Israeli get out from Egypt to the desert, this is how the Ethiopians see Operation Moses. And my uncle was the only one that decided to go. He didn't connect with my father for 1 year. So my father already he thought that he died, because a lot of people come back to Ethiopia in the middle of the journey and say a lot of people dying. So he understand that probably if he don't hear nothing for 1 year, so probably his brother die. But after 1 year, he call him and he tell him, I'm in Israel. there is a lot of Jewish people. It's weird, but all of them are white, and most like some of them are brown. But still, this is not what you think about. This is not what most of the average Ethiopian Jewish thought about the Jewish word. And it's not was about skin color. It was about like, when you live in certain Jewish community, this is the only Jewish face that you see. So and then you see like the first time, who is this blonde with the blue eyes? Like, this is the first time they interact with people that they never see because they was so isolate in their mind, in their culture. So after that, my father wait for a long time for one call. The one call come when I was 2 months old, and his brother from Israel told him like, we are going to Israel. Like, I'm like, you're going to Israel. You need to go to Addis Ababa, and I show you before the map. So Addis Ababa, it's in the center. It's a 2 weeks road from Gondar to Addis Ababa. And they take everything. They come to Addis Ababa. My mother was with 6 children, most of them under 9 age. So it was a really, really hard thing to do. Until today, when I asked my mother about Operation Solomon, how she feel in the camp, how it was like to be in the airplane, she don't remember nothing. She have a blackout. She remember just the moment that they come, they kiss the ground of Tel Aviv because they thought it's Jerusalem. And somebody told them, no, this is Tel Aviv. Wait. And we were lucky because we moved to Jerusalem. And we saw Jerusalem. We saw the only thing that really, really most of the Beta Israel, the Ethiopian Jewish community, believe was the photo of Jerusalem, how Jerusalem will be. And this is what keep them also to be Jewish so many years, 2,000 years, and very isolated, because this is one of the things about Beta Israel. They are very disconnected from the other Jewish community in the world. So we will speak about the different. We have a lot of different, how we celebrate holidays, how you celebrate holidays. The basic, it's the same, but a lot of halacha, like when we speak about halacha, the rabbinic Torah, it's something that the Beta Israel didn't participate, because for us, the Torah was the Torah, and you don't allow, a bunch of rabbi cannot sit on the Torah and decide what God decided. What written, it's written. You not decide what the meaning of this and this law. This is the basic of the Beta Israel community. מה זה? רגע, לא עובר לי שנייה. איזה מוזר. Okay. So finally, we came to Jerusalem. I put the picture of Jerusalem. And my mother say to me all the time, when they come to Jerusalem, this is the 3 things that her and my father say. Everybody here are equal. Finally, we're in Jerusalem. And that is it. Life without worries, because we accomplish the dream to come to Israel. Right now, we are in a Jewish state that everybody equal, because in Ethiopia, there's a lot of Jewish anti-Semitic case that was against the community, and Jerusalem. So somebody can argue with me what they might think wrong when they say all these 3 things. What do you think the Ethiopian community didn't understand when they come to Israel? Or being very naive when they come to Israel? What do you think? Like, think about something that they didn't think that will happen to them.
Well,
Yeah.
probably was surprised to see that being Jewish isn't the same to everybody.
More.
Discriminated?
Yeah. More.
Questioning about Jewish roots?
Yeah. So I will speak about questioning about Jewish roots, because this is something that the community were very offended about people question their Jewish roots. And one of the reasons it's because we are very, very jealous about our religion. Like we keep this religion so like for 2000 years. And when people question your Jewish roots and you don't know why, they feel very offended. And also they didn't understand what is Western word. Most of the community was agriculture. When they come to Israel and understand that agriculture, it's not something that help you to be successful or to become very rich enough to raise your children, they understand that the gap between third world country and Western world country, and also the limit of the language. Most of them know basic Hebrew. They didn't know or at all, or none, like didn't speak Hebrew at all. And of course, my parents quickly understand that three of these things equal Jerusalem and war is the only thing that there was sure, it's finally we are Jerusalem. Now we need to start to fight for the equal. We need to start to understand how we going to raise our children without worries. And just let you know that in Israel, my mother gave birth to 2 more children, and completely we are 8. I have 8 siblings. Okay, we are a lot, but it's not a lot, I swear. It's not, especially in holidays when we sit, it's not feel a lot. So a lot of the things that I all the time see, it's the gap between my sister that, by the way, go to the IDF for the first time in Sunday, and between me. We have a different way about life in Israel. And it's funny to see how she, as someone that born in Israel and raised in Israel, feel much more insecure than me. And I'm much more secure. So we will speak about it, but it's funny to see that. So racism, it's discrimination against a different group in the society who have the same color, religion, and ethnicity. So I put something. So who know the Black Panthers? Not the American Black Panthers. Somebody know the Moroccan Black Panthers? No? Adi, you want to explain? No? Okay. So this is funny, but every ethnicity group that made Aliyah, that made immigration to Israel, face discrimination. So I put here the Moroccan Jewish protest and movement. They call themselves Black Panther. Of course, you understand why they call themselves Black Panther. The idea comes from USA. And it was discrimination against the Moroccan Jewish people. And they feel it's come more from the Ashkenazi side. And we can see this in this side, the discrimination against the Ethiopian community. So we have, I think, the big non-protest, it's 2 protests, but a lot of protests against discrimination. And it's funny because when it's come to Israel, when you speak about racism, especially, everybody declare racism, everybody. Like Ashkenazi will say, you are racist against me. Middle Eastern will say, you're racist against me. Ethiopian say, you're racist against me. Russian Jews say, you're racist against me. And it's really, this is like the average Israeli, everybody declare for racism. And in USA, I know that it's different. And it's so mind-blown for me that in USA, you have one definition for racism, and not everybody can declare for racism. So I grew up that everybody declare for racism. So we can see here, I write it in Hebrew, but like one of the things that people do a research in Israel to see how many times you face racism. So Arab people say 61%. Ethiopian people, oh my God. Ethiopian people say 49. Then the LGBTQ community, then the Middle Eastern, then the Ashkenazi. You can see that everybody declared for racism, and we can question about it. If you have something you want to, like, you have question about why everybody declared for racism or not, or you understand why everybody do it.
I will just add that what we say Middle Eastern, what Avezo said, it's like the Mizrahim, which we did talked about in the lecture about the Iraqi Jews, about the difference between Mizrahim and Ashkenazim. And also the Black Panther, if I remember correctly, it was not just Moroccan Jews, it was Israeli. It was really like the Mizrahi movement, like all the people who came from Arab and Middle Eastern countries. And it's a pretty high number as well. And yeah, just wanted to add that.
You have a question about it? About racism in Israel? Okay, so this was basically the point. I think when I was 17, I understand what is racism. But before that, I never understand what is mean. And I never face-to-face with racism. And the simple thing, it's because I was living in a bubble. I grew up in a very Zionist, secular, religious, Orthodox school. This is what my father decided. My father decided that four of us will go to religious, secular school, Orthodox, and 4 of us will go to non-religious school at all. I don't know why he decided to do it. He probably want to know who will be much more better. If you ask me, the one that grew up in the religious school are much more successful, but it's not because of me, but I really think that it's something funny. So, when I was 17, I decided for my last year in the high school, I want to move to non-religious school because I was feeling that I didn't choose to be religious. Like my father chose this for me. And he allowed me to move to the non-religious school. And this is the first time I understand racism and the difference between Ethiopian and other Israeli society. And I was mind blown because in the religious school, we never speak about it. Like in the religious school, we was so focused about praying, thinking about God, thinking about the land of Israel, everybody Jewish, and that is it. Like you don't bring political identities to this space. And when I was 18, it was the first time I was part of a movement that protest in one of the cities in Israel against discrimination against Ethiopian community. And this is the first time I really sit down with other people in the community to ask them about their thought about racism and discrimination in Israel. And I was shocking that a lot of them don't feel Israeli enough. For me, it was very shocking. But also I understand that it's environment and how you grow up. I think because I grew up in very Zionist religious school, I was feeling belong enough. And people that don't have the opportunity to go to religious Zionist school or decide not to go, they feel very different. And also I grew up in a neighborhood that's very diverse. Our neighborhood was Moroccan, Russian, Ethiopian, also people from Iraq. And a lot of the Ethiopian community live just in neighborhood of Ethiopian community, like just Ethiopian people in their neighborhood. So it's a big difference where you grow up sometimes. And this is one of the factors, because I grew up in a very diverse neighborhood and community, I didn't feel what they feel. If you have questions, feel free to stop me, okay? So at the moment, I really realized that I have a different, I think different from a lot of the Ethiopian people, but like youth people that I meet in the protest. And I will never forget when I say, like, when I understand that I'm Israeli, but I also forever will be the Ethiopian, okay? Because if somebody want to describe me, he all the time say, Avezo. And he say, what Avezo? Is Avezo, the Ethiopian one. So I understand forever I will be this Ethiopian one. And as wish, like, I try so many years to disconnect my Ethiopian culture. And when I was 18, I was come back to my roots. And I was like, you cannot deny that. Like, you need to come back to your Ethiopian Jewish story because it's a part of you and it's not going away. And I don't see it offended anymore. I don't care when people recognize me by the Israeli Ethiopian or just the Ethiopian. I really don't see it offended because I think it's a big two-part in my identities. You can see me in the IDF. So when I was 18, of course, I go to the IDF. And this is my group. Until today, we are great friends. And you can see by the picture, I choose to be many medic. And yeah, we do a lot of stupid things, by the way. Not recommend in the course, a lot of, like, I never get the idea how you give responsibility for 18 years old because they do a lot of stupid things. This is what they do, especially in the IDF. So I was many medic, and then I become a lieutenant officer. I was 4 years in the IDF. I served mainly in Judea and Samaria, the West Bank. And this is also was my first time to really meet the Palestinian community. But we are not going to speak about the conflict because I speak about the conflict so much. But yeah, this is my short time, not short, 4 years in my life I give for the IDF. And it was really, really a great time because I understand so much about the Israeli society. And this was my first time also meeting Arab and Druze people and people that I never had a chance to meet them if I was staying in my city. And IDF gave me the opportunity to meet so much people, so much face, a lot of faces of Israel that I didn't know that exist. Question about the IDF? You have question about IDF? No? You can ask me how you survive 4 years in the IDF. Joking. So you see me in the airport, say goodbye to my mother before I fly to USA, with a very strong idea. Yes, I am Israeli, I'm Ethiopian, I'm a Jewish woman. This is it. And say goodbye to my beautiful city, Nes Ziona, if you don't know it, it's in Israel, and say goodbye to my family and start a new life, basically in America, and also very excited to meet the American Jewish community. And because most of the average Israeli don't know nothing about the American Jewish community. And before I will show you this short movie, I just want to say that I was hard time to understand not just the black box, also the term Jewish of color. Until today, I just don't get this term. And we will speak about the term, but one of the things I try to do, it's really educate myself about the Black Jewish people that exist in USA, because I quickly understand that we have so different mind and we think about Blackness and about discrimination and about racism so different. So this is one of the short video clip that I want to show you, and then we will discuss about it.
California only has 100 Ethiopian Jews, including Samu and his family. Arriving at the age of 3, Esther, now 40, tells us about her school career in Beverly Hills.
I went to a Jewish private school from about 5 years old until I was about 14, right before high school. It was interesting. I was the only Black girl there. Everybody else was white around me. I remember that there was a rabbi in our school. Actually, he was a substitute teacher, and he came for the day. And I remember coming back from recess, and he stopped me in front of everybody, and he said, "Stop! What are you doing here?" And being an 8-year-old or 7-year-old, I think during that time, what would somebody answer? Of course, I go to school here. And he said, "Well, you're not supposed to be here." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because you're Black." I think that's one of the moments when I actually realized that I was different from everybody else. I mean, I knew I was different, but I also knew that I was color different.
Eleni, an African-American Jew of Ethiopian descent, has also experienced racism in the Jewish community.
People should really take the time to get to know, especially in the Jewish community, get to know their neighbors and get to know the people that comprise the Jewish people, and not perceive that it's only Ashkenaz Jews that are out there, only Sephardic Jews that are out there. And I think it's really tiring to explain over and over again who you are and what you're doing in shul.
Esther's father, Samu, a political exile in 1981, struggled to get his papers, a journey full of pitfalls where the Jewish community has repeatedly tried to harm it.
Every meeting I go, like Esther said, "You don't look Jewish. How do you become Jewish?" They say. Everybody doesn't look Jewish. Everybody looks like where they come from.
Elisheva Rishon, a Brooklyn Jew and African-American, moved to Los Angeles and launched a clothing brand inspired by her story.
I also want people to feel proud of being Jewish, because right now in America, there has been a huge spike in anti-Semitism, and a lot of people feel afraid to show their Jewishness. And I think we should do the exact opposite. I think we should probably show who we are.
But it's not just about Black Jews. American Jews in this Latin community have a hard time being heard.
Especially in Jewish communities, there is a unique tie between our historical experience with oppression and modern current expressions of disenfranchisement or oppression in American communities that make us natural allies, specifically for Black and Brown communities in the US. And I hope that Jewish folk in America will work very hard to look inward at the way their Jewish communities are, to examine ways that they could be not only more welcoming to the true multi-racial, multi-ethnic Jewish community that they have present already, but also how they can ground themselves in their Jewish identity to serve other communities.
Somebody want to say something about this short video? Comment?
Do you know when was it taken? When did they film this video?
No, I think 2016.
Okay.
Yeah. When we speak about LA, this was something that's very weird for me, because don't offend it, but if somebody from reading will tell me, there is a Black Jewish or like Ethiopian Jewish, I will not be shocked, because it's tiny community in the middle of nowhere stuff. But when we speak about LA, sorry, I love reading, I'm sorry. But we speak about LA like a very diverse community, and you still face with the idea that you need to tell people like, yeah, I'm Jewish. But I also understand that majority of the community, Jewish people that live in USA are Ashkenazi Jewish. So it's not weird when people approach me and tell me like, so you are adopted? What do you mean that you are Jewish? And it's weird to get this question, because in Israel, you never faced with this question. And here you face it mainly because you are not white. This is why you face this question. So I found it very weird, but also I find it very weird that people call us Jewish of color. I don't agree with this term. And if somebody wants to comment about that he agree with this term, so do it and feel free before I comment why I don't agree with this term.
Can I say something? This is Carol.
Yeah.
So I completely agree with what you say, except we are in this moment now where we have to call out everybody because of their race, even though we're supposed to be post-racial. So it's goofy. We are so concerned with terminology anymore. But about Jews, I mean, there are large communities of Syrian Jews, let's say, in New York, and they kind of stay together. You know, they have their own synagogues they worship in and whatnot, and they're very, you know, they stay together. They live in the same neighborhoods and whatnot. And I joined 1 minute late, so I don't know where you're located right now in the States. Where are you?
Philadelphia.
Philadelphia. Okay, you're not far from Lancaster.
Yeah.
So, but I do understand what you're saying. But the majority of us grew up in a very Ashkenazi world, which tended to be white European, or at least European, right?
Yeah.
And that's one of the main reasons we're doing these lectures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get to know other.
I totally agree. If people more approach me and ask me about my history of Judaism, then call me Jew of color, because to paint it, I think Jew of color, it's very dividing term, and also it's make a strong point of like Jewish are white,
right,
and you are the weird one. You are the Jew of color, because Jewish without the Jew of color need to be Ashkenazi, but the Jewish of color, it's you. And you just like make the point that I try to fight. Jewish are Jewish, okay?
Right.
And Jew of color, it's a very divined, and I think it's also come, like Carol say before, because today you, person of color, woman of color, all these terms that you say today in USA, you applied it to the Jewish word. And I was okay with woman of color and person of color, although I don't use this term. But when it's come to the Jewish space, the Jewish people, I think it's divide us more than make us unite. Because in Israel, everybody Jewish, by the way. And I think every Israeli, if he heard the term Jew of color, he will be not comfortable with this term. Like, he will not accept this term. Somebody wants.
Do you get questions about being Jewish, not just from Jews, but from non-Jews as well, who say, you're Jewish? You know, you don't look Jewish, with quotes around that.
Yeah. So most of the people, it's funny. So Jewish people, majority in Philadelphia, when they meet me, so you're Israeli Ethiopian. They know. Majority of them know about the Ethiopian Jewish community. Non-Jewish people will ask me, what do you, like, are you a Jewish? You are serious? Like, usually they're white people. So I don't like, I know, and I don't blame them, because most of the Jewish people in America are Ashkenazi. So this is the only stereotype of Jewish that they see. But I have problem with, also with the non-Jewish, when they call me like person of color. Somebody want to comment about woman of color, person of color, something that you feel like, no, you don't write. We need to use this term. Or we agree with you, Avezo, this term, it's not okay.
You're welcome to unmute yourself and comment.
Okay, so, but sometimes we have to describe somebody, and in the process of describing, we might mention hair color, we might mention skin color, we obviously might mention gender.
Hey.
So, I mean, sometimes you have to do that.
Yeah, but if you describe Jewish people, why you need to focus on the color? They are just Jewish.
Right.
Or if I describe women, why I need to mention their color? I'm a woman. Like, what is, give me? You can say, I speak with Avezo. Yeah, by the way, she is a Black woman. I'm okay with that. But like randomly, when people put this identity of you and tell you like, oh, you're a Jew of color? Oh, you are like a woman of color? Like, for me, it's not working. Like, it's divide me, and the focus more about my color and not about me being a woman, first of all, my color and not me being a Jew people, like a Jewish people. And I think it's wrong.
In America, we have to check a lot of boxes. You know, you go to school and you got to check a box, and you know, what happens when, you know, what does other mean? You know, I mean, so when, if you had to go to school and check a box as to what you were, male, female, skin color, often they don't ask, I don't think they ask religion unless they ask if you want to put it down. So if you were going to college, I'm just trying to think, you know, how do you define yourself?
I will not check the boxes, by the way. I told them about the social security card. I refuse, every time there is a boxes, I refuse to check the boxes because I don't understand the concept. I don't understand the idea behind the boxes. As someone that's not American, I agree, and I give permission to myself not to check the boxes.
I will just say I'm also like that. Every time I see that question, it annoys me and I just refuse to answer, or like, that's what I check. I don't want to answer. Because
Same for me.
Because I feel like it's not relevant, as Avezo said, like, it put me in a label, it put me in some box that it's not relevant. If I'm scheduling, I don't know, a COVID test, it doesn't matter. Like, what is it? And like, they just immediately put you in labels. And like, I don't want to be part of that game.
Margot and I were having this conversation the other day regarding boxes and labels, and it was what the Whoopi Goldberg was sort of bringing up to me. And Adi, I'll forward you the email I wrote to Margot and Amanda the other day about it, because I thought it was a really interesting thing to maybe have a program on what really defines us, and is Jewish a race? Because when I was trying to check off those boxes, and I've had to do it my whole life, I never felt white defined me, because Jewish was how I felt, and that was never a box. Is that Middle Eastern? Is that white? Is it? I never felt it was a box, and I agree with you, Avezo, that defining yourself by that box is a very tricky thing to do, and I don't think it's any easier today than it was when I was a kid.
Yeah, you know, a couple things about checking boxes is, depending on what it's for, it has to do with funding. If, you know, seriously, it's thinking about COVID and who was getting shots and whatnot. When they talk about the different communities that are not not served, choose not to, and whatnot, if you can check a box that says, you know, I'm Black, I'm Hispanic, I'm white, they will have a better sense of, they think, and in a way, who is getting vaccinated and who is getting served or who is underserved still. So I can understand where they're coming from, but I don't know. I mean, you'd have to break a whole bunch of rules. You'd have to go backwards in this country in a way.
I came from Mexico, and I never checked any box growing up. So when I got here, I didn't want to check Hispanic. Because I'm Mexican, I don't fit in that box. So I didn't check boxes before.
I think immigrant or people that come outside from USA, they don't love the general, like how the general all your identities to a box. And they're like, okay, I can probably box the African one, but also Africa, it's a big continent. Like, I'm Ethiopian, like, it's like the difference between West Africa, it's so big different. And you put us in the same box. I don't care, like they put in the same box, but the box idea, it's very, for me, I find it very weird about USA. And also, I think because from young age, children, and you also, like, see boxes every time when you go to office, to the doctor, you start to see the world like this. You start to see the society in America in the boxes without notice that you do it every time. And for me, I love the idea to meet people. I don't assume, I don't care that I meet Adi and say, she probably Middle Eastern, no. I will sit with her, I will listen to her story, I will learn about Adi, and I think it's much more powerful, it's much more respectful than put the color or like assume what religion she is, then like just sit and speak. I think it's much more respectful. And so you probably agree with me, Jewish of color, it's not respectful term. Sorry, stop. But I have a lot of American, by the way, Black American Jewish friends, and they identify themselves as a Jewish of color, and I can understand them because they have so different experience than me about living and grow up as a Jewish Black person in USA, and the identity of Jewish of color, for them, they see them. Like this term, it's something that they see the other Jewish people. So you can see in this picture, the rabbi of the Ethiopian community, and they dress up really pretty and nice. And this certain of costumes, it's look like a little bit like the Middle Eastern, I think. Yeah, Rav Ovadia Yosef, so it's look more about the Middle Eastern.
It kind of looked like a Moroccan dress. The Moroccan have a lot of like.
Rabbi of the Arabic community, they dress up like this, that it's very ancient. So this picture, by the way, I take it from the holiday of the Sigd. And I don't know, Adi, you teach them about the Sigd?
I didn't teach. I think I posted about it on my social media.
So this is one of the big holiday that become right now a national holiday in Israel after a lot of pressure from the Jewish community, just to them recognize that the Sigd holiday, it's a Jewish holiday. And not just the Ethiopian Jewish community, because its origin, it's from very ancient Jewish historical time in Ezra and Nehemiah. If somebody know about Jewish Torah and history, and Jewish Ethiopian just continuing to celebrate that, while the other Jewish people in the other diaspora stopped to celebrate this holiday. And this holiday, it's after Yom Kippur, and it's mainly about our community. So in Yom Kippur, you ask forgiveness from God, you do with yourself the talking. So the Sigd holiday, it's more about sit as a community, forgive as a community, and just start to learn as a community what we need to do better as a community for the next year. I love this holiday. I think it's very important. And it's also, for me, when I see the new generation of Ethiopian Israeli, they are more Israeli. There are zero Ethiopian on them, like my sister. And she don't understand the meaning of Jewish, of the Sigd holiday. And I find it very sad because I think it's so beautiful holiday. And it's one of the things that kept us as a Jewish community in Ethiopia.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
When it said that it was the first time that Moses recognized God, would that be like the burning bush? Supposedly?
Yeah.
I just wanted to understand. So that's what Sigd refers to, the first time that Moses recognized God.
Sigd refers to the first time that God gave. You remember when Moses sit in Har Sinai, in the Mount of Sinai, and then God gave him the Torah?
The Ten Commandments, yeah.
So this is the Sigd. We try to do it again. Like everybody in Ethiopia go to the high mountain that face to the east, to Jerusalem, and then we read the Torah, they come down, the fasting, and we try to do like the same Mount of Sinai story. And because Mount of Sinai was about community.
What did you say? You're gonna what?
I'm probably like a Florida Atlantic University.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Mount of Sinai was a lot about community, and the community accept the Torah and understand that they are become a Jewish people and the value about the Torah.
Yeah, they accepted the Torah and the responsibility as a people.
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So in Ashkenazi era, the diaspora Judaism, that would be Shavuos, wouldn't it? But is that,
Shavuot is על הרגל. So in Shavuot, what we're doing, it's like usually going to Jerusalem. You have 3 holidays that you all the time go to Jerusalem. Shavuot, Pesach, and מה שלושת הרגלים? And Rosh Hashanah. 3 of them, you're going to Jerusalem, and it's not about accepting the Torah. Shavuot also, it's about agriculture, by the way.
it's about what?
Shavuot is about agriculture. You take from your, the things that you grow up and you give it for the poor people.
Okay.
Yeah, so Shavuot is that, and also like what Torah was saying is like that we got the 10 commandments,
Yeah.
and the Shlosh Regalim, the 3 holidays that we go in to Jerusalem are Shavuot, Pesach, and Sukkot.
Sukkot.
Yeah.
סליחה. Sorry. Okay.
Right, they're called the pilgrimage holidays.
I think we have 10 minutes barely to answer if you have question before I'm going to lecture to my student about Tzabar and being Israeli. Yeah.
So is there, I learned so much about Ethiopian Jews before, like from different organizations in Israel. And I one time listened about how they have to deal with police brutality.
So this is my personal idea, and I know that a lot of my friends will not, the Ethiopian friend especially, will not agree with me. I think that we have a problem with the police in general, first of all. And in Israel especially, I feel police targeting a lot of communities that they feel that they don't have power. So it's not much about the Ethiopian community. It's about a lot of other community, and it's not, the only thing that I can say that they're right, it's the profiling. Most of the time, if you are in a neighborhood that's considered very richful, it will be weird for them to see a Black man in this neighborhood walking in the street. And it's profiling and stereotype. This is the problem in the police. Second, we speak about protests. One of the big protests was in 2019, after policemen shout and kill Ethiopian young youth. And there was a big protest. And I think after that, the police did a lot of job to understand what we need from them and what, like how to learn again what they're doing wrong. And I don't want to say that it's police brutality. I will say that it's more ignorance, and you can solve everything by education. So my 2 cousins are policemen, and one of the things that we do after the accident, it's like take me and speak with policemen about profiling, about how most of the Ethiopian people, youth, especially if they are men, afraid when they see police. So we speak about how we see them as a police and how sometimes we assume they see us. And I'm more, I love the approach of education and communication than going in the street and shut and like do the protest. Protest is very important, but also if after the protest you don't talk and you don't do education and communication, you will not solve nothing. And communication is the key. This is it. But yes, you're right. Like totally, police brutality, it's a big topic in Israel. Right now, no. I think the Haredi, it's moved to the Haredi side. So we played with the police. Sometimes it's with the Moroccan Jewish, sometimes it's with the Haredi, sometimes it's with the Ethiopian. But I wish that all this community will agree to understand that we have a problem with the police and we need to educate more the police. This is the problem.
What about one more? What about the heretic in the Ethiopian community? Are they welcoming or?
It depends what sector. Okay, so my brother is Hasidic, by the way.
Okay.
And you have
Isn't that great? It's just great. You got a Haredi Ethiopian brother. It's like, I think it's great.
So most of the Ethiopian, if they become Hasidic, they will go to the Sephardic because Ashkenazi are much more strong. Ashkenazi have a problem not just with Ethiopian, with other communities, but it's really depend the sector, because if you go to the south, to Netivot in Israel, you see this beautiful Sephardic that full of Yemen, Moroccan, Iraqi, Ethiopian. Most of them look like Hasidic, but it's beautiful to see that. So yeah, you have a relationship with the Hasidic people, but it's really sector. I also don't love to call the Hasidic because inside this group, you have so much beautiful sector, and you have the sector that really like the Syrian in Brooklyn, they are not allowed for anyone to come in to the community. And sometimes if they decide to do it, why like all the time to pressure? I think this is sometimes in the years, they will change the idea. But I love to see the Hasidic side of my brother, but I also think it's weird to see him dress up like Hasidic. It's funny. For me, it's like, what are you doing? You dress up like someone Ashkenazi, but you don't call yourself Ashkenazi, it's Sephardic, and you are Ethiopian. So it's funny for me.
I think we have time for like one last question. Betsy, I saw you wanted to ask.
Yeah, I'm sorry that we were late. When we registered, we thought this was at 7 o'clock. And so
Yeah, I emailed last week that it changed into date, but I will send a recording if anyone wants.
Yeah.
But I wondered because the first time I heard about Ethiopian Jews was, I think in the 1960s and 70s, when the airplanes were taking the Ethiopians out of a terrible situation and bringing them to Israel. But I was wondering, there was a term at the time, and I understand that that term is no longer used and is in fact considered derogatory. So what is the name of the Ethiopian Jewish community now?
Where? In Israel?
Yeah.
Ethiopian Jewish.
So it's not, because I saw that when you had the Torah that you had a word, oh no, it was about the holiday, that it was an Amharic word. So is Amharic?
Ah, you mean, maybe you speak about the term of Ethiopian called the Ethiopian Jewish in Ethiopia?
Maybe.
Are you
Are
talking
you
about
referring to the term Falashin?
Falashin? That's
Yeah.
Falashin.
That's the term I had heard.
Stranger, yeah. It's
Oh, Falasha means stranger?
No, Falasha means stranger, you are not belong here, it's not your land.
Oh, that's
And
not
this
nice.
is The Ethiopian, no, but this is how the Ethiopian people, the non-Jewish Ethiopian people, call the Jewish Ethiopian in Ethiopia.
I see, okay. So that was only used there?
Yeah, it's used there, but people will agree with you because the new Aliyah, we call them Falashmura. You still have a lot of Ethiopians that come to Israel, and this Aliyah, like the new immigration that come after 2002, we call them Falashmura, and this is offensive. And this is made not by the Israeli, it's made by the Ethiopian Israeli community.
I see, I see, okay.
Like we decide to call them this because we don't see them Jewish enough because they come late.
They're Jewish.
Oppressor,
Or they're not.
Story of the life, oppressed, become oppressor, everybody do it. No, I think it's stupid, but also like you can see it so much in the history that people do it for each other.
So what is the term for Ethiopian Jew in Israel? What is it in Hebrew?
Ethiopian, like we don't have a term.
Maybe she means the like Beta Israel, like.
Oh, yeah. Is it Beta Israel?
So a lot of people community want to call themselves, want that people will call our community Beta Israel and
Okay.
not Ethiopian Israeli, because I can call myself Ethiopian Israeli, but my sister, she's not Ethiopian. She is Israeli completely. She don't have the experience like me. She grew up there. She don't speak the Ethiopian language even. She don't, although I try to teach her about the culture, she refused. She's really Israeli. And I think I don't want people will call her Ethiopian Israeli, but it will continue. Like people will call her Ethiopian Israeli all the time because this is how they recognize her. So a lot of time you find it also like your friend Anna. Who is Anna? The Russian one. It's something very Israeli. So we have a problem
Very
with
Israeli, even I will say I'm Iraqi, even though it's my grandparents, but it's very common that we will
continue.
identify ourselves with where our grandparents and our parents come from. So you will hear a lot of, "Yeah, I'm Iraqi, I'm a Moroccan, I'm a."
But it's the same here. When I came, everybody was, I'm Italian. I'm thinking to myself, you are not. Your grandparents were Italian, but no, you're not. Like here, everybody's something too.
So in Israel, it's very like, that's the conversation.
This is the conversation all the time.
Okay.
But we need to finish because my student come to.
No, well, thank you for your answer.
תודה רבה, Avezo. If anyone wants the recording, just email me and I will send it to you. Avezo, תודה רבה. Enjoy with your students.
Enjoy. Bye.
Toda.
תודה.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next lecture, we will meet on March 1st about the Jews from Tunisia.
At 7 o'clock?
7 o'clock, yeah, that
Okay.
was the only one that we changed for 6:30 because Avezo had another talk right now. So if you missed the beginning, just email me and I will
Okay.
send you the recording.
I have a question and you can ask her and then you can let us know or you can let me know.
Okay.
I wanted to ask her if she chooses to get married, would she want to marry an Ethiopian? Does it matter? Does she want to continue her heritage? You know, it's just interesting because you've got a melting pot in Israel, just like what we do here, you know, and
So from how I know Avezo, I don't think she will want necessarily to marry an Ethiopian Jew. But I will ask her that. I think in our generation, it's less like that. Like maybe our parents' generation was more like that, especially when they immigrated from Ethiopia. So they stick more in their community and people from their community. But I really believe that our generation, it's much less like that. Like you can see even our parents' generation, they didn't had a lot of marriage like Mizrahi and Ashkenazi. You could still find some, but even the Mizrahi and Ashkenazi back then was not as common and accepted as much as today. Even today, you can find some families that were not wanted, but
In the past, in my grandparents' time, the 50 years before, the German Jews, they were all Ashkenazi, but they got here 50 years first, and they made the Guggenheim Museum, and they made a lot of money. And then when the very poor relations came in, the Russian Jews in the turn of the century, they were in 1906, 1905, they were real looked down upon.
right, it was the German Jews versus the Russian Jews, right?
Yeah, and so in my family had a mixed marriage like that. We call it a mixed marriage. You know, it's pretty funny. But that reminds me of what she was saying about the newer ones that have come since 2002, and they're being looked down upon and called falasha or strange.
It's something that was
very similar. It's like they just haven't been, you know, they're the new kids on the block, and they're not as accepted in their.
Exactly. I think I talked about in the lecture about the Iraqi Jews that it's something that we saw in Israel, that each immigration, the new people came, so the others look upon them, and then but they time that and then there was a new immigration coming, so the one who came before joined the other to look upon them, and then there was the new ones. So it was
put down the new guys. Put down the new guys.
Exactly. So that was.
It's kind of universal.
I think we all do that. Like I know people that were born here, but they're Mexicans, but I grew up in Mexico. I feel like, well, but I'm not more Mexican, but like you didn't grow up in Mexico. Like you because you live different. They have different experiences.
Yeah. Carol, I will ask it with Avezo just to double check.
Yeah.
And I will email you, but I'm pretty sure that will be her answer.
And I would like to have the recording, because I didn't know it started at 6:30. So
I want the recording too, so
Yeah.
I don't know if I have your email. I think I got the thing that says Adi Shalev that is how I joined this. So if
Yep.
I go to that email, I'll just put reply and ask for the recording, right?
That will be perfect. Okay.
Okay. And she used the term beta, B-E-T-A. It sounds like, we used to have VCRs where
Yeah.
beta, and I've never heard that word. And what is that an Israeli term for her group? Beta?
It's a Beta Israel. It's like the name of the, I don't have to say like the community, but it's basically the name of the Jewish community, Beta Israel. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm looking here on, it says also known as Ethiopian Jews, Beta Israel, are a Jewish community that developed and lived for centuries in the area of the kingdom of Aksum and the Ethiopian Empire.
Okay.
So, I mean, they go way, way back.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, but beta,
Is, yeah, also known as Ethiopian Jews.
and so bait, is it anything like olive bait, gimel dalet,
No.
like no, it's not like beta.
Not one
from
of the letters. No.
Olive bait. It's not from that root? No.
Okay. So that will everyone.
Thank you.
If you can email me, I will send you the recording. That will be perfect. Just reply to the email I sent you today or last week. And hope to see everyone on March 1st.
Beta House of.
Yeah.
That's what it
Laila
says.
Tov.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bait, house of, right.